What led John Cena to do this at the Oscars may shock you. Coming off the spooky confession of Ryan Garcia, the Illuminati and its alleged control over different celebrities and public figures has been making its rounds all over social media. Now, is this John Cena moment a quirky bit for the Oscars, or is it something much darker? John Cena was made popular in the WWE, being every child's hero, while also sparking decades of the "you can't see me" memes. But when John Cena decided to try to make it big in Hollywood, things seem to have taken a turn. He took roles that required he cross-dressed, leading to the continued demasculation of men in media, as seen in this weird dancing video and this skit with Jimmy Fallon. And fast forward, he's even been caught in these pictures wearing a skirt and heels. But is this a man revealing who he really is? Or is this him wanting to signal allegiance to the LGBT community? Or has he been coerced in his behavior for fame and fortune? Is this some sort of humiliation ritual? The answer, surprisingly, may be found in this trend perpetrated by the Hollywood elites. Now, this is just my theory, and it may or may not be right, but this is just what I'm thinking as I'm watching all of this go down. But before we get into that, guys, my name is Ruslan, and this channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. If you're new here, or if you're not new here, please consider hitting that subscribe button, as a huge percentage of the people who watch this channel regularly are unfortunately not subscribed. In light of the recent controversy of TikTok potentially being banned because of its affiliation with China, it made me think of this John Cena moment, who was almost also banned because of his allegiance to China. This is John Cena in Chinese apologizing to China because he said that Taiwan is its own country.
我有一个错误，我必须说，现在就是很重要。我爱更尊重中国，更中国人。
So clearly, what happened at the Oscars last night isn't outside of the realm of the possibility that John Cena has clearly been controlled by the Hollywood elites, his handlers, China. I don't know who's doing the pull stringing, but something's going on with John Cena. So this is what happened last night at the Oscars. He's coming out there, butt booty naked with the envelope. Mind you, this is on primetime television. Primetime meaning that this is when children are up and watching this sort of stuff. And I don't know, is this the Holly weird sense of humor of like, let's do something kind of sus? Or is this some sort of humiliation ritual? Then Jimmy Fallon comes out and the lights go dark and they wrap him in a toga outfit. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if this is the Illuminati, the elitist at the Bohemian Grove, or some sort of humiliation ritual. I think that this entire thing may be actually darker than we think about. And I believe the answer can be found in this trend that was made popular by some of the elites in media. Let's take a look at Oprah here. Seemingly harmlessly just holding a bag of coffee here. But this isn't a regular bag of coffee. This right here is actually the most expensive coffee in the world. And I find it interesting that this episode has completely been scrubbed from the internet. This was back several decades ago when Oprah was highlighting different cups of coffee that clearly only the elites can drink, as this cup of coffee here is well worth over $100. And a couple decades later, we even have 2 Chainz doing an episode on it. Check this out.
Let's do it.
Kopi Luwak, does it live up to the hype?
Coffee, coffee, baby.
Can you taste the difference?
Hell no, but
There are cups of Kopi Luwak that are as much as $100 served in various cafes. So
If you didn't notice, there was quite some bleeping that we had to do because they kept repeatedly saying cat poop coffee. Kopi Luwak coffee is coffee that is processed by a civet. Let me explain. What happens is there are certain coffee beans that are harvested from cherries. And the theory goes that if you have a civet who naturally eats these cherries, them eating it, first of all, gives you the best of these coffee cherries. And then whatever their digestive system does to it makes the coffee less bitter. And they ultimately poop it out like this. And someone gets the privilege of going through and picking apart the coffee beans that they ate from the poop and the feces. So that's right. That $100 cup of coffee is $100 because it's harvested from animal poop. Now, I'm going somewhere with this, but first, let me give you a bit more context on what this is and whether it's actually worth it or does it taste good. This is James Hoffman, a coffee connoisseur who does a breakdown on this entire thing, and you should really go watch his whole video if you're interested in this, but listen to basically where he concludes.
Well, most seasoned coffee tasters who are doing blind tastings of Kopi Luwak generally report that it doesn't taste very good. My own experience? Well, I was told I was tasting Kopi Luwak, and what I tasted was low acidity. It wasn't unusually low in bitterness. It was kind of earthy and a little bit wild, and it was not particularly delicious, and it kind of reminded me of a number of other low-quality coffees that have had similar attributes. So with you knowing now what I know about Kopi Luwak, I hope it makes sense that I would say, please don't drink this coffee. Please don't fund an unnecessary and cruel aspect of the coffee industry.
Now, on top of the coffee being absolutely disgusting, James points out that the way this coffee is sourced is rather unethical.
I think way back in sort of 2005, 2006, someone told me that 4 times more Kopi Luwak was sold than was actually produced. And this was before the bucket list kicked everything off, so I'd imagine that problem is only getting worse. The second aspect of Kopi Luwak production to scale up with demand was caged civet coffee production. Essentially, people would capture wild civets, cage them, and force-feed them coffee, kind of battery farming Kopi Luwak. I did read one paper that almost proudly stated that over the course of a season of coffee harvest, a single civet could produce 14 kilos of finished product, though I'm pretty sure that someone has found a way to force more coffee cherries into that civet and up the kind of yield from them, which is disgusting. Caged civets suffer in just about every single way. They're living in cramped, dirty cages. They are force-fed a diet of just coffee cherries, which is not healthy for them. It's just a life of cruelty and captivity, and it is awful. You'll see almost all Kopi Luwak sold as wild civet coffee, but you'll realize pretty quickly this simply cannot be the case. And actually back in 2013, the BBC did an undercover investigation into one of the wild producers and indeed found caged civet farming at the heart of it. I don't think this is uncommon. The stakes are too high. There's too much incentive. There's too much money to sort of stop this kind of fraud happening.
Stick with me here. I promise you this is going somewhere. So think about this. The elites drinking $100 cups of coffee that they believe was processed through a civet who digested it, pooped it out, and then somebody had to go through the poop just so they can have their elitist luxury brand of coffee that actually tastes pretty gross. And the only reason they pay this high price and drink this gross coffee is because they believe the story that's being told to them. The story that they're getting the premium batch of the coffee cherry collected by these wild pivots who get to eat it, and their digestive system makes it even better for them, and they're living in the wild, and you're getting the creme de la creme of this coffee. But in reality, they're negatively impacting everybody involved. They're negatively impacting these wild animals that are forced to eat this coffee all day long. A lot of times they're flat out getting scammed because it's not this coffee at all. And when it is the real coffee, someone is in the process having to go through cat poop to find these beans that then get harvested and processed for the elites to consume. And at the end of it, as we saw from 2 Chainz himself, the coffee doesn't even taste good. And this reminds me of the deceptiveness of sin. How there doesn't need to be an Illuminati, an agenda, a secret cabal, that oftentimes our hearts will be deceived by what sin really is. That we'll buy into false stories and false narratives about things that at their logical conclusion aren't elite and special and novelty. They're actually harmful to us and everybody involved in this process. Kopi Luwak isn't just about coffee. Kopi Luwak can be that secret corn addiction you have where you are consuming something that you think makes you feel good and you think it's gratifying your flesh, but it actually harms you in the end. And it harms everyone involved in the production of it. This could be that relationship that you continue staying in even though you know that it's not healthy and it's harming you and the other person and everybody else involved. This could be that addiction you have that you know you need freedom from, but you remain in it because it's comfortable and it gives you comfort and security. But the reality is it's harmful to you. Now, in a moment, I'm going to show you a Bible passage that beautifully glues all of this together. But let me just say this. I don't think John Cena needs to be controlled by some elitist cabal to do the goofy stuff he's been doing. I actually think that he may be participating in something that he believes will serve his career well. He believes that if he does this stuff and he expresses himself and he doesn't take himself too seriously as a man, that this will push him into the elite level actor that he wants to be. Perhaps he wants to be on the level of a Dwayne Rock Johnson or someone like that. And so the Kopi Luwak there can be the desire for status and fame and to be the A1 A-list celebrity above everybody else, but it ultimately leads you to standing butt naked on primetime television for the world to see. It reminds me of this passage that's written in Hebrews chapter 3, verse 12. See to it, brothers and sisters, that none of you has a sinful, unbelieving heart that turns away from the living God. But encourage one another daily, as long as it is called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. Notice the last part. We can be hardened by sin's deceitfulness, which is why the stories that we allow to be told to us are very important, or the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves are hugely important, because sin is deceitful. Sin will often take you way further than you wanted to go and cost you way more than you ever thought you would have to pay. And so I would ask you, what stories are you telling yourself? What stories are you buying into? You see, because we could talk about the facts of what you should and shouldn't do, but oftentimes people know what they shouldn't be doing, but they do it anyway. There's a narrative component that our brains and our spirit needs, and it's rooted in the need for story. And so when we think about the gospel story, the story or myth that C.S. Lewis says happens to be fact, it changes everything, which is why I believe Hebrews is saying to us that we need to encourage one another daily. Encourage one another with the story of the gospel, the greatest story ever told, that the hero comes to earth, lives the life that we could never live, dies the death that we should have died for the villain, and redeems and reconciles people back into a right standing with God. That story changes everything about mine and your identity. That story actually gives us a deeper purpose and a deeper reason for how we should be living our lives, not for clout and fame and to gratify our sinful desires with whatever's in front of us, but that we should be living for something greater than us, that we should be living to participate in this kingdom of God on this side of eternity, that we get to also be a part of this reconciliation work that God is doing here on earth today. And that story is the gospel of Jesus Christ, that all men are called to believe in and place their faith in. And an important aspect of not buying into the deceptive nature of sin in our life is by finding healing. So click here to hear about one of the most important steps to Christian flourishing. I'll see you over there, all right? Peace.